circle, centers for Cousins, a shot, and he scores. Dylan Cousins makes it 3-0 Lethbridge here.
Byram gonna take it coast to coast on a backhand, scores!
To the blue line, Vandele's that effort, tip, scores! Carson Folk is Mr. Teddy Bear! A deflection.
He scores! It's over! It's over! Game 7, overtime, hero!
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the WHL Podcast. I am Zach Hodder, your host and the manager of player development for the Western Hockey League. We have got a doozy of a show for you today. We've got a longtime play-by-play broadcaster who has made the jump to his hometown team in the NHL. We've got a potential first-round pick in next year's NHL entry draft, and one of the top prospects entering the Western Hockey League this year. All that and more after the news and notes. It's been a big week of assistant coaching news in the Western Hockey League. We'll start in Lethbridge, where Lethbridge Hurricanes assistant coach Andrew Doty has been hired by the Henderson Silver Knights and will serve as the team's video coach. Doty first joined Lethbridge in 2013 as a game night volunteer and has spent the past 3 seasons as an assistant coach with the Hurricanes. He will join former Spokane Chiefs head coach Emmanuel Viveros and former Vancouver Giants assistant coach Jamie Heward with the Henderson Silver Knights. Michael Chan of the Edmonton Oil Kings has been hired by the Toronto Marlies of the AHL as the team's video coach. Chan, who has been with the Oil Kings for the past 5 seasons, has spent the previous 3 seasons as the club's video coach and hockey operations coordinator. Chan has also worked as a video coach on several Team Canada events. That's it for the news and notes this week. For everything WHL, you can go on to our Twitter page at the WHL or the website www.whl.ca.
Top of the zone, feeds it back to Andre, back to Kubi, one-time blast on goal, popped in the air, score! Here go your teddy bears, spin that wheel, throw those bears. Conner Roulette has tied the game at 1 on the power play.
Well, with the way the rookie season's going, we probably should have guessed that he was going to score this teddy bear goal.
Today, I'm joined by Seattle Thunderbirds star, burgeoning star in the Western Hockey League, and potential first-round draft pick in this year's NHL entry draft, the 2021 draft I'm talking about. It is Conner Roulette of the Seattle Thunderbirds. Conner, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Just like I told you before, we're going to be heading out, me and the girlfriend skiing this weekend, so I got no complaints. What's on the docket for you? What do you have going on this weekend?
Just some home workouts and hitting the ODR with some friends. Not much to do with everything shut down, but thankfully all the ODRs are open and they have the lights on all night. So it's probably the first thing I'll be doing all weekend.
It's one of the benefits of living in the prairies compared to the guys that live out on the West Coast, where they can go play in a puddle, but they definitely can't go play on the ODR. But speaking of that, it's been a weird start to the season, obviously, as much as the season ended last year. You actually got to play a couple games with the Selkirk Steelers, the Manitoba Junior Hockey League. You had a goal and an assist in 3 games. What was that experience like for yourself, and how good did it feel to get out there and play some games?
Yeah, it felt really good just to finally be able to kind of put the whole equipment on and, get into some games and kind of be in that team atmosphere. And it definitely felt pretty good. My brother played in the MJ, as a kid watching him, and you finally get to, play in the rinks that he played in. And it was just to get, and meet the new guys and play with some guys that I played with before. And it was a great experience overall. And it was finally, get the legs going again, get in game shape. But then sadly we got shut down and haven't been on a team since. So, those 3 games were fun and it was a good experience.
Well, looking back at last year, you had an outstanding 16-year-old season in the Western Hockey League, 19 goals and 20 assists for 39 points in only 54 games, which is beyond impressive. And it put a lot of expectation on you heading into this year. So when you look back on last year and as you prepare for this year, it is your draft year. What are the things that you have been working on or the things that you have been trying to develop so that when it comes to, whenever the draft is going to be, you hear your name as early as you want to?
Yeah, well, the season, it did end off pretty good. The first half of the season, it kind of took a lot of just getting used to and, finding your game, playing with older, better guys. And, I think, throughout the season, just finding that confidence. And I think this summer, just getting stronger and getting bigger. And then, just you grow more mature. And then, so I think, biggest thing just coming into this season is coming in stronger, faster. And, just for me personally, I think it's, just protecting the puck more. I need to kind of work on, puck protection, and, that just kind of ties into being stronger. And then just having more confidence and just being a mature player in the league, I think that'll help me a lot. And obviously, just the players I play with as well. There's a lot of great guys on the team, and it's just, you can't do everything, by yourself and all that. And thankfully, the great players on the team. And, if I were to hear my name get drafted and all that, it would be, just from the help I get from, the players I have on the team. And, just hopefully we get the season. Hopefully I can be back with that group and, just continue to play with, such a great group of guys.
Yeah, and you guys are building towards something there. You have such a young team from last season, the youngest team in the Western Hockey League. You're obviously working towards a goal that, this year would have been a big step. And then the year after this, your 18-year-old season is going to be a real big year for that Seattle team. And you're going to be a very important player on it. Unfortunately, we've lost almost a full season now due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but you've picked up a new skill. You're a big NHL 21 player now online. You and Keaton Dowhaniuk are part of the Indigenous Gaming Hockey League. Can you just explain kind of how you got started with the esports hockey and what you love about it?
Well, yeah, just like every hockey player, and I think almost everyone in, who loves playing games, it's just kind of something that you do on your off time. And, just this summer and this off season, I guess we've had so much time just to kind of, when you're not working out, you're not skating, and you kind of have an off day, you just kind of sit around and you kind of pick up new hobbies. And I think just as a kid, I always kind of grew up playing NHL 05 on the PS2, or I went from PS2 all the way up to the PS 5. So just kind of finding new hobbies, and then just when you kind of play, it gets competitive, and you like to play with your friends and have fun at the same time. So you find out there's leagues and stuff like that, and there's people having games and set times and set rules. It's pretty fun. So yeah, it was definitely, one of the big things that I found, that's the funniest thing to do. So when you get to find in a league like that, you play against guys like Keaton, he's a great NHL player. So it was pretty fun just to do that live stream with him is pretty good exposure. And I think it's just the funnest thing, hobby I got into this summer.
Well, I know Keaton has his own Twitch stream. Are you planning on getting your own handle there so we can start pumping you a little bit too?
I don't know. It's if I were to do that, it would be fun, but right now it's not really a goal of mine. But maybe get a face cam for the next stream or something like that would be pretty fun. There's always room for that. So if it does come down to it, for sure. But right now I'd rather be a masked gamer who's beating guys who don't know who I am. So but I do have a Twitch account. I just don't really go on it as much.
Well, I got one last question for you here as you get ready for the start of the season. Outside of the ShoWare Center, which is the home of the Seattle Thunderbirds, what rink are you most excited to get back into next year?
I'd probably say the Angel of the Winds or the Rose Garden in Portland. It's always fun games to play in there. The fans are just as loud as the ones in Seattle, but definitely not better. I think just playing against Portland or Everett, you have such that big rivalry, and then the fans get into it as well, and it's always loud, and it's always there's always so much, I guess, intensity in the building, and it's just fun to, when you score or when they score and you kind of have that adversity, or when you get that luck on your side, it's always fun. It's always a fun game. So I think just playing in Everett or Portland is what I'm looking forward to the most. If you play anywhere, it'd be there.
Now, the Battle of the I-5, both those teams, it's a great matchup. And the Angel of the Winds is a beautiful arena, and the Rose Garden is obviously a classic. And then the ShoWare Center, I think every WHL fan needs to get out to a Tuesday game at the ShoWare Center. I don't think there's any experience like it in the Western Hockey League. But Conner, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. Wish you the best of luck as we get prepared for a season here, and you continue to stay mentally strong. That's what it is right now. Pretty much you guys just got to keep your focus, and I think you're doing a great job. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
A big thank you to Conner Roulette. Up next, we have Cam Moon, who served 22 years as the play-by-play voice of the Red Deer Rebels. Before last Monday, he got a call that changed his life forever. The hometown boys heading back home to the Edmonton Oilers, where he will be serving as their play-by-play voice on radio with 630 CHED this season. Today I'm joined by, well, in the Western Hockey League, he'd be the Joe Thornton of play-by-play broadcasters, but in the NHL, I guess he's the Alexei Lafreniere. He's the new guy. It is former Red Deer Rebels play-by-play man, current Edmonton Oilers play-by-play man on 630 Ched. It is Cam Moon. Cam, congratulations, and how have the first couple days in Edmonton been?
Thanks. It's been hectic. This came together so quick that you barely catch my breath and get up here and cram like I've never crammed before to get ready for broadcasts, but starting to get my feet under me a little bit here. It's been a lot of fun in a very short amount of time.
Well, let's talk about how quick that turnaround was. This came, I found out about this early Monday morning before the announcement came. I knew that you'd be having to work a game at least, maybe at the earliest Wednesday, but for sure on Thursday night. What do you do when you find out, hey, you're going to be going to the NHL to do a play-by-play game? Here is 40 names you need to memorize. You need to understand who these guys are. Oh, and by the way, regular season game starts in 3 days. So get ready, kid. How did that feel? And what did you do to get ready?
It was overwhelming. Like last Thursday, I was walking my dogs in the afternoon without a care in the world. And it was, next thing you know, a phone call, a couple of interviews. I found out Sunday, it got announced Monday. Tuesday morning, honestly, I was throwing clothes in my vehicle. I have no idea if I have got the right stuff. I took whatever I could and drove up here to be at practice for Tuesday, to watch Wednesday, to broadcast Thursday. So yeah, it was tough. I had to do a lot of cramming, get as much information as I could, as quick as I could, and try to simplify as much as I could. And I didn't want to try and do too much. And my head's just not smart enough to handle too much information all at once. So I had to slow it down a little, keep it simple. And once I got the first one under my belt, I'll feel a lot better. And that knowledge is going to grow as time goes on. So I'm looking forward to getting a few weeks under my belt, but it was crazy quick. It wasn't something I was looking for, but I sure am glad that it found me.
Well, Cam, I think let's talk about that game last night that you called. It was your first ever NHL game. I'm sure you were nervous, but there's such a cool moment that happens because the first goal you ever call in the NHL for the Edmonton Oilers is Ryan Nugent Hopkins, a guy that you know very well, a guy that you got to see and develop in the Western Hockey League. And what was that moment like for yourself?
It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. Like I wanted the Oilers to play real well. I thought they had a bit of a slow start on Wednesday night, certainly in the first period, and then maybe a little bit of bad luck halfway through the game where some chances it didn't go in for Edmonton and then did for Vancouver. I figured they'd come out pretty hot, and they did. And then when Ryan scored, it just seemed like so fitting that that's the way it went. So I was happy because I always want to see Ryan do well. I'm so biased. I wouldn't have been upset if Brandon Sutter got a goal too, former Red Deer Rebel on the other side. I certainly wanted an Oilers win, but if Brandon would have got one too, that would have been really good. But I was happy for Ryan. I want to see him score, and I see him get two. It was crazy. Like it's funny how life goes sometimes. And here we are right now.
Yeah, 2021. It's going to be a good year for everybody. You know, it started a little bit rough. You know, we had almost an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, but you know what? We bounced back. I actually not very happy with you. Wednesday nights, the Canucks win. You're not working the game. Thursday night, the Canucks lose. You're working the game. So maybe on the Canucks games, we just sit those ones out from here on because the Canucks need those wins.
Well, the Oilers needed that one bad. I mean, if you listen to the sports talk radio here in town, there was a bit of panic, I think. Typical. That's how it is in Canadian markets, where we get really excited when they win and right in the dumps when they lose. But yeah, it was a good. I thought the Oilers played really well last night.
Yeah, the best thing about the Canadian, especially, Vancouver, Edmonton, Toronto, Montreal, team could go on a 10-game winning streak and it's all roses, but then they lose one and then the GM should get fired.
That's it.
Yeah, you know all about that. Let's go down memory lane, though. 22 years with the Red Deer Rebels. I think I'd assume, this is an assumption on my part, but the 2001 Memorial Cup team has to be one of your best years. And can you just kind of remember any big games or big plays or or players that really stuck out in your mind about that year's team? And what was it like to be, you were with the team for 3 years at that point, to go to the Memorial Cup and then to win the Memorial Cup as well?
Well, going into that year, it was expected the team was going to be pretty good. The year before, they were good enough to get into the playoffs, got beat 4 straight by Kootenay in the first round, but Kootenay went on to win the WHL that year. So no shame in that. But a lot of guys coming back and a lot of key players. So the idea was, okay, this team's going to be pretty good. And then out of the gate, they were. A big trade made at the WHL trading deadline. Martin Erat was a huge part of that, coming over from the Saskatoon Blades. That helped a lot too. But from the middle of December on, that team never lost 2 games in a row, including the playoffs. And if you think about that, that's a lot of hockey, a lot of road trips, back-to-back nights on the road, all sorts of things, and yet they never lost 2 in a row. I remember when the team went through the U.S. road trip and going out there and sweeping it. Like, that in itself is really difficult. It's a ton of travel. I remember a 1-0 game in Portland, the team that the Rebels played in the WHL final that year. But in the regular season, it was a 1-0 win in Portland. It was just an amazing game. There were so many cool moments. And one that I'll never forget, this is unbelievable when I think about it. It's the last game of the trip. The team's in Tri-Cities. So they've won every game. They've got a pretty healthy lead in the third period. And if you know where the press box is in Tri-Cities, it's really not that high up. And it's right up and over. It's a beautiful location. And there's a face-off in the Tri-City end. And Bryce Thoma played for the Rebels for 4 years, then went to the U of S and was an assistant coach with Red Deer for years too after he was done playing pro, is coming onto the ice from the bench. And the press box is across from the ice. Thoma skates out in a real methodical, kind of slow way onto the ice before the face-off, looks up at me, makes eye contact, gives me the little nod. They drop the puck. It goes back to Thoma, puts it towards the net, rebound, score, because of course they did. And I think it ended up like 6-2 or something. There was that confidence in that team. It was a great bunch of guys. Justin Mapletof wins the WHL scoring title that year with 120 points. And a guy was lights out from start to finish. Martin Erat won the WHL scoring in the playoffs. He was amazing. Shane Bandera was the playoff MVP in goal. Unbelievable. And then the Memorial Cup in Regina was just crazy. It was just so much fun. A lot of people from Red Deer were able to drive to Regina. So it had a bit of a hometown feel, at least when they weren't playing the Pats. So that was pretty cool too. And during that playoff run in the second round, Rebels lost the first game to the Calgary Hitmen. Actually, the Rebels lost the first game of the first 3 series that year in the playoffs, but they lose to Calgary at home. The second game goes to overtime. And I remember thinking, geez, if they drop this and go down 2-0 heading back to Calgary, that's a real tough road home. And Colby Armstrong scores a goal on a wraparound that brought the house down. Like, it was so loud, you couldn't talk to the person next to you. And it was such a special feeling. So there's something about a WHL playoff run where the whole town gets involved that I think is amazing. And it doesn't matter what WHL city you're in, it's that same feeling. And it's just so fun to be around. And that year was incredibly special.
Absolutely was. There's what's funny is you go through the names on that list and there's guys that were WHL scoring leaders that never really accomplished much in the pros, but then on that team as well, there's Martin Erat and there's Colby Armstrong and there's guys that ended up going on to the NHL having very long, very successful careers. And that's kind of what it takes, is you need that mix of everybody on a great team, as I'm sure you know. But when you look back on your career, what do you think is the worst call that you ever had? It's the one that sticks out in your mind that the second it came out of your mouth, you were like, oh my God, I can't believe I just said that.
Oh, there's probably a bunch of those. Yeah, I'm sure the key is to just get past it. Don't dwell on it. Just move on. If you don't make a big deal out of it, nobody else will either. But yeah, there's got to be a bunch, especially when you're like on the road and you're doing the game by yourself. And maybe it's the third game in 4 nights and sleep, you haven't got a lot of it. So, I mean, you're not like the sharpest you need to be. That certainly happens. because of the travel and stuff. And, or if I try to do, especially after 3 games of 4 nights, and you try to do math in your head while you're broadcasting, like when you're figuring out if 2 goals were relatively close together, and I'm quickly trying to decipher in my head the time gap between the 2 goals. Yeah. God knows I've butchered the heck out of that over the years because you don't really have time to figure it out. You're figuring it out in your head as you're talking. So I'm not sharp enough to do that all the time. So there's been a few of those.
I think one of the coolest things about, having played in the Western Hockey League, like you did as well, you were a goaltender in the Western Hockey League, is you get to know the communications guys, the play-by-play guys, and the broadcasters really well because of those road trips. You're with them on the bus. You guys are talking at pregame meals, and you really get to know the players from your position. And one of the cool things that I found is that there's guys that come into the Western Hockey League that there's no expectations on them. They're just kind of there to fill a role, but they turn into guys that over the years end up developing into NHL players. I mean, for myself, I look back at Jordan Martinick was a good example of this. He was a guy that was just supposed to come in, but then turned into an assistant captain now with the Carolina Hurricanes. Is there a guy with the Rebels that you saw over the years you were there that you didn't really have expectations on that ended up becoming an NHL hockey player?
Well, one of them that comes to mind right off the hop is Jim Vandemere, who was the captain of that Memorial Cup team in 2001. Jim made the team as a 17-year-old and only played about half the games and was sometimes a forward and sometimes a D and just filled in where he had to fill in. And then the next year at 18, he played defense all the time, but not a big role. And then at 19, he made a pretty big jump. And you're like, it didn't hurt that he was tough as heck. He got into a ton of tilts at 19 back when those sorts of things happened and started to develop into a guy that you could, play top 4. And then at 20, he was clearly the captain. His leadership skills were off the charts. There was no question. This was the guy that was running everything. And the buck stopped with Jim. If you needed something done, you just say, Jim, this is what needs to be done. And it's done. You never even had to worry about it. He was 20 going on 35. And his role increased to the point where he was like a top defenseman. He signs a free agent contract with Philadelphia that year. And then his rights got traded to Chicago. And then he played in the NHL in Chicago. And I believe he was in Edmonton as well, San Jose, Vancouver. There's a guy that, at 17 years old, he was never drafted in the WHL. He was never drafted in the NHL, but had a really good career in the NHL because he worked so hard and was such a good guy.
My last question for you. Mm-hmm. You're in the NHL now. What are you most excited about this year in your new position?
It's a couple of things. The first thing is just being able to call NHL hockey. But when you get right down to it, it's still hockey. It's everything. The lights are pretty bright and there's huge attention on it for sure. But when the puck drops and the broadcast starts, it's really not much different than what I've been doing in Red Deer. It's still the game, and you still need to call it and capture the excitement and the essence of being in the rink for the people that aren't in the rink. And right now, nobody's in the rink. So now I really need to capture the essence of the game without the addition and the help of fans making noise. I don't have that luxury, but that's okay because I can get jacked up about this without having people there. And the second thing, quite honestly, is coming to Edmonton. I grew up here. I watched the Oilers as a little kid. I went to so many Oiler games with my dad, and I got a lot of buddies here, and I've got a lot of ties and roots and you name it. But this is my hometown. And I'm as excited to be back in Edmonton because I love it so much as I am to be working in the NHL. There's no place I'd rather be.
Well, there's no place you'd rather be. It's a full circle story now that you're finally back home in Edmonton with the Oilers. You got one game under your belt. I hope that you have several hundred to 1,000 more. As much as we would like to see you back in the WHL, we'd much rather see you stay up in the NHL. So Cam, congratulations again on all your success. And I wish you the best not just play-by-play, but staying healthy and staying in it, enjoying what you can this year. It's going to be awesome. Congratulations.
All right. Thanks, Zach. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you again to Cam Moon, and we wish him the best of luck with the Edmonton Oilers this season, except when they are playing the Vancouver Canucks. Our last guest today is the third overall selection from the 2019 WHL Draft. His brother plays for the Edmonton Oil Kings. They're going to bet on who has more points this season. It is Prince George Cougars defenseman Keaton Dowhaniuk. Today, I'm joined by the third overall selection from the 2019 WHL Draft. He was the captain of his Bantam team that season. Just happened to be the same team that the fourth overall selection to the same club the Prince George Cougars played on. That's Cohen Zimmer. But this is the third overall pick, Keaton Dowhaniuk. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing very well. I can't complain. It's a beautiful day here in Calgary. But what have you been doing right now? It's been such a weird year in the fact that we haven't been able to play. We were able to play, some minor hockey, a little bit of junior A, and now we're not able to play again here in the province of Alberta. So what are you doing to stay in shape, stay healthy, and get ready for the start of the WHL season?
Yeah, so obviously it's a different off season than normal. So I've been out at the ODR with some buddies, probably 4 times a week, and then working out here at home.
Well, you're lucky in the fact that your older brother Logan's played in the Western Hockey League with the Edmonton Oil Kings. Are you able to train with him and just get any advice on what he learned in his first season in the Western Hockey League as you prepare?
Yeah, he helps me. He pushes me in the gym. He's there for me.
Well, let's ask you this. Who's going to be the next season? Who's going to have more points, you or him?
I don't know. We might have to make a bet on that one.
That wouldn't be bad. Well, you did go third overall. You were actually the first pick for defenseman. So we could say you're the first overall pick among defensemen in the 2019 WHL Draft is one way to look at it. But for people who haven't seen you play before, can you describe the type of player that you are?
I think I'm a pass first kind of guy, well skater. I like to play physical, move the puck up north, that kind of attitude.
And you're going to learn from a few very good coaches who've had a lot of experience at the NHL level, including Jason Smith, who played over 1,000 games, was the captain of the Edmonton Oilers for many seasons. When you went to training camp last year and you got to meet the coaching staff for the first time, what were your takeaways from that training camp experience, and what did you learn moving forward into last year?
There's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. I felt the vets welcomed me nice and well into camp, so that helped as well. Coaches, they like to talk to me, so all positive reinforcement from them. So,
well, looking back on last year, when you came back to OHA Edmonton, you had quite a good season. In 25 games, you had 22 points, but you also got 8 regular season games with the Prince George Cougars. Can you describe that first game and the jitters and what was going through your mind before puck drop for your first game with the Cougars?
Oh, it was pretty nuts. It was in Portland during their teddy bear toss game. So it was a big warm-up crowd. Me and Colin were actually both out there for a quick little lap in warm-ups. But I mean, the jitters went away right after first shift. I kind of felt comfortable out there. It was nice playing out there though, but the atmosphere was really fun.
Was that in the Moda Center or in the Veterans?
That was in the older rink. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, that's the Veterans Memorial. I mean, one day, hopefully, you'll get to play in Moda. It's where the Trailblazers play. It's an incredible rink. And as somebody who got healthy scratched quite a bit when he played in the Western Hockey League, one of the best video scoreboards in the league. So I don't think you'll have to worry about that. But for anybody else who's listening who might not play a lot, they will. But let's move away from the rink. Let's get to know you a little bit more. I've been asking this question a lot. Who is an athlete that you admire?
Erik Karlsson. I like the way he plays. Smart player, offensive D-man. I like to model my game after him, as well as Drew Doughty.
A couple pretty good players to model your game after right there. The Tokyo Olympics, unfortunately, were postponed. But if there was a sport outside of hockey at the Olympics, what do you think you'd excel in?
This one might be a weird one, but probably swimming. I'm a pretty good swimmer, so.
Hey, we got the next Michael Phelps up in Prince George this year. And then my last question for you. A lot of these younger guys, they love to play video games. Is there a video game that you enjoy playing?
NBA 2K21. That's a big game. me and my buddies go at that all the time.
Oh, that's a great one. I think most of the kids in the league will be playing that one too. So you guys will have a lot of competition up in PG this year. But Keaton, again, congratulations on the success that you've had so far in your career. And I wish you the best of luck to yourself and your family as you continue along your path and you continue on to your end goal of one day making the NHL. So thank you so much and have a great week.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's it for the podcast this week. A big thank you to Cam Moon, Conner Roulette, and Keaton Dowhaniuk for taking time out of their weeks to sit down and talk with me. I hope that you are having a great start to 2021. We're now 3 weeks in, so if you've kept up with your resolutions, you should be able to keep them all year because it takes about 21 days to create a habit. And if you haven't, don't worry, neither have I. I hope you have a great week, and we will be dropping another episode next Wednesday.